And welcome to the Go Earn It podcast. This is episode number 34. Man, think about 34. I go right to Walter Payton. But we are talking wrestling with Cody Brewer, national champion for Oklahoma, four-time All-American, couple-time Big 12 champion for the Sooners. And now he's the head assistant coach for the Wild Man, Joe Dubuque at Princeton. Cody, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. This is fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be on. So thank you.
I want to start with this. I come strong out of the gate because especially against a guy like you, Cody, you're good on your feet. You score a lot of points neutral, and I got to get to your legs quick. So first question for you is, in all your time wrestling as a wrestler and as a coach, who has the best wrestling IQ that you've ever crossed paths with? Yeah, we're coming. I mean, that was me and getting to the legs. I told you in the text, you better be ready for the hand fight. And I got at it.
I knew you would come with it. Probably Mike Lightner, my coach at Oklahoma, probably has the best IQ I've ever been around as far as number one, knowing where I was good, and we built off that when I was at Oklahoma. But I still tell people it's not my style that I'm teaching now, it's his. And he was a national champ at Oklahoma, coached many national champs when I was there. But his IQ of just knowing me as a person, where I needed to get better. We both kind of fit in the same system of just, I was a high crotch guy. He was a lefty high crotch guy, which is probably even better in that way, but unbelievable IQ that he had, knowing the sport, knowing how people are, which is a big thing. I mean, I think that's knowing your athletes is huge. And he was probably the best guy I've ever seen do it. I've been around a lot of good people, unbelievable. I'll mention another guy just because you know him, Big Ten guy, Andrew Howe was definitely high on that list as well. Of his IQ and how to work with athletes was great, and I learned a lot from him when I was there at Northwestern with him. So both those two guys are probably the best I've been around, but there's probably going to be many more in the future. So
I had a note about Michael Lightner. What is your favorite Michael Lightner story? If you can, peel the onion back. Give me an example of something he did with you that you'll never forget.
Yeah, I remember one of the first kind of workouts, and I always looked up to him. He was probably the reason why I went to Oklahoma. I wanted to learn from a national champ, but just watching his film, and really educating myself. I was a young kid when he was going through. And I remember we had a workout, and at the end he kind of grabbed me, and it was like a hand fighting workout. We're hand fighting, and we actually went like all the way into the hallway of Oklahoma, like just, going back and forth, hand fighting. And after that workout, and he was pushing me around, there was maybe some punches, some hand, we were going. And he actually had texted me after that workout, and he was like, listen, anybody that bloodies my nose in a workout or wants to come to fight, I'm behind for the rest of their career. And that was like early at Oklahoma, when I was just a freshman, and I was like, this guy's going to be my guy. He obviously, I had to show him kind of that respect that I was in there to battle. And once he found out I was, after that, it was kind of like no looking back, and anything I ever needed workout wise, anything I just needed from him personally, he was there. And yeah, that first story that we had of that kind of that hand fight, and he was like, man, this guy's going to be different. And I knew, and I tell people this because I looked it up actually this year, just to, you're recruiting and looking at rankings, and I was ranked 14th in my weight class. And there was one national champ in front of me and 0 All-Americans. So you just never know high school wise. Like that was my senior year ranking. You never know where you're going to be and who you're going to be around. But man, I was around the right people like Coach Lightner through that time. And that's what got me, the success that I had in college.
What's your first memory of starting wrestling?
Oh, I was a young kid. I think I started when I was 5 or 6. My older brothers had wrestled, and I just remember going into the room, and I could not get enough of like just trying to wrestle with the high school guys. There was, I had like their own kids practice, but I was grabbing like my brother's friends that were in high school, and I was like, come on, let's wrestle, and I'm a young kid, but I was like, that was something that I like always thrived for. Like I was always trying to grab the bigger, the better guys. Even as a young kid, I loved the sport that much that I was like, man, I gotta who's this guy? What weight are you? Hey, let's wrestle. Hey, let's wrestle. And I ate it up in that way. I was annoying to them probably, but I remember doing that all the time. I remember, one time I went to one of my brother's college events and I was in middle school. And I remember being like, I could beat that 25-pounder on their team right now, kind of telling myself that. And I like kind of grabbed him and wrestled with him a little bit. And I was like, I'm there, and it's a college guy, of course. But I just remember having that chip on my shoulder, kind of in a way, but I wanted to be better. And going to those college events, you learn so much. I'd be seeing something on a Saturday, trying it again at a club practice on Monday. So, I ate it up in that way. I loved it. I played football too, but knew I was never going to be big enough to play football. But I loved wrestling probably right from the get-go. It was hard, but I loved it.
You had a phenomenal high school career, 4-time state champion, Oak Park, there in Kansas City. Did you ever lose in high school?
I did every year, actually. I actually think that's what defined my career, in a way in high school. Cause our high school really chased competition. I think I lost in-state, once or twice, and then out of state a couple of times too. So, I definitely, yeah, there was times I got humbled for sure. I remember, my freshman year, the first time I'd ever had somebody throw legs in on me. Didn't know what it was like in the Midwest. We just didn't, it wasn't a thing. And we wrestled in Ohio and I was like, man, I got to get better here. And here, it's just, I grew within the sport. Yeah. I lost at least once every year, not many times, but, yeah, I remember that made me better, made me train harder, made me go back to kind of the drawing board where I was deficient. And, but yeah, I think at least once every year I was there. So
Who did you lose to? You remember?
Alan Waters, who I think he was a 2-time All-American in Missouri. We wrestled my junior year. I lost to him. Um, Zane Richards, me and him went back and forth. We wrestled twice. I think we went 1-1. He was really good in high school too. My freshman year, the guy that threw legs was Gus Sako. I remember him. He was an Ohio kid. And I remember being like laughing
St.
about that
Edwards.
now.
St.
Yeah,
Edwards.
because
Yeah.
he's so big. Like we wrestled at like 103 pounds and then he got much bigger than me in college. And I was like, man, that guy was a 103 pounder at one time. So, but yeah, those were a couple of the guys I remember that were all, had good success in high school and then, some of them in college as well. So
When it comes to Gus Sako, plug for Defense Soap. They do a lot of great stuff for wrestling. Defense Soap.
Yeah.
You guys get some Defense Soap there at Princeton for sure.
Yep.
No doubt.
For sure.
How important is it, Cody, to chase that competition and forget about the record? I mean, so many people are tied up into the records. I mean, I got to tell you this, and this is a little bit of a rant. It's great to win state titles. It's awesome. In Wisconsin, where I live, the Kohl Center, guy wins a 4th state title, gets a standing ovation, and deservedly so. However, it's my opinion, if I was a high school wrestling coach, I would basically make a promise to you that I'm going to do the absolute best I can to get you beat. I think there's more value there. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think like I said, it defined my career. And I think for high school kids too, it's like everybody's so good. The level, even from when I'm getting close to 10 years, well, a little over 10 years out of high school in some ways. Like I think the high school wrestling has gotten so much better. It's so hard to be able to compete and go undefeated, and maybe stay in your own state and do it that way. And you mentioned Wisconsin. It's like, you want to, some of these states, it's like, I have to travel out. I remember, one of my guys, Sam Watona, that I coached at Virginia Tech, he's from Alabama. The state wasn't great, for him. And he didn't have a lot of competition, but man, when he went out, he was wrestling these Super 32, he's wrestling these tournaments, he's getting other, competition. It helped him. He took some losses, helped his career now. In that way, it's just, you have to do it. I think if if you're not losing, that's great. Winning is awesome. Don't get me wrong, but where are you actually getting better? Are you peaking for the right things? That was always a big thing with our high school program. I came from a number of 4-time state champs in my high school, but they all probably lost at some point. There was all, during their careers, because we went and chase competition, which I think is something you have to do, to grow within the sport and become better. And it teaches you adversity, at a young age in high school. You're not always going to win everything. And the fact that you have that adversity early is good.
What's your favorite state championship memory? Doesn't necessarily have to be the state championship final either.
Man, I think my freshman year, I wrestled a senior in the semis. Wasn't picked to win the match. He was a big, big 103 pounder at the time. I think I got a takedown late in the match and actually turned it into a Turk and almost got a fall off that. And I thought that was pretty awesome to end it with a takedown and back points. And yeah, just as being a freshman and being in that moment, that state semifinal, probably wasn't picked to win. The guy was really good. I think he was a state champ possibly from the year before. So that was big to turn that takedown in the near fall in that match on top, and then obviously ended up winning in the finals too. So I think that kind of catapulted me. But I just remember being happy and being proud of myself that I stepped to the occasion. You know, that guy's a senior, he's an experienced guy. I'm just a freshman, and being able to rise to the occasion in that moment and get a takedown at a big point and then turn it in a near fall as well. So
when you look at your college career, how did you deal with pressure? And how did that approach change as you matured?
I would say obviously the right people around me to calm me down at moments, but to me, and I kind of look at life this way, in a way, I wasn't supposed to be there. College wise, I wasn't supposed to, I don't think in my mind, do much in high school. You know, I wasn't supposed to leave Kansas City in some ways. I was grateful for the opportunity. I was always so excited to compete. The work and the time I put in to cut weight, to compete at the best possible I could. I wasn't supposed to do any of that. So the fact that I did, I was just grateful for the moments. You know, the pressure never really got to me because I was more excited. You know, I was trying to be grateful for that moment that I got to put on that OU singlet and scrap was more of, I was just grateful for the opportunity. The pressure stuff would never really got to me in the way, like I said, because I wasn't, my expectations, I think were different from what people thought. And what I thought of myself. Obviously, I thought I could win a national title. I thought I could be great. But just grateful for the moments that I had. I mean, we had big duels and big matches and semifinals of tournaments and finals, and just always took it as an exciting opportunity. Not so much, man, that's a lot of pressure. It's a big moment. It's like, well, go get to somebody's leg and let's see how they react, you know, in that way. So I had a different approach to it for sure. But you know, pressure comes and goes, you know, as much as you love it. Once you slap hands, it's kind of done at that point, and you see where you're at and you test yourself, you know, in those moments. So, yep, that's how I kind of dealt with it, I guess, in a long-winded answer. But
what I love about these interviews is everybody's got a story. I mean, every single person's got a story. Like looking at you right now from my vantage point over your right shoulder, looks like a bunch of, I'm assuming probably Princeton teams of the past is my guess.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Everybody that toes that line and puts that singlet on, everybody's got a story. I was watching an interview with you and Mark Bader like 4 years ago, I believe it was. It was on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you were telling Mark, and I was like blown away by this. The year you win the national title, you basically left the team. You left the team because you couldn't make weight. Give us that story again. It's too good not to tell again. It's bonkers.
Yeah. So I wish, you know, in some ways you wish you don't have it, but when it turns out the results you have, you're like, in that way. But yeah, so it was after Christmas break, I had got hurt.
And this was your junior year, correct?
Yeah, my junior year. So
correct, redshirt junior?
Yep,
okay.
Redshirt junior, yep. So I came back, had a good start to the first part of the year. I had only lost one match, and some would say I kind of got caught because it was early in the match, but just in the crazy thing of, I think I got pinned. And I think I went in, I want to say that break, that was the only loss I had. I was probably like 10-1 roughly, or 11-1.
I think it was
somewhere
Earl
around
Hall.
there.
I think it was Earl Hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, I know exactly who it was. I remembered it. Crazy situation we got into, and I got caught, and I was like, oh, well, he got me. So, but good first start of the season, regardless. Wrestling really well. Honestly, I want to say I bonus pointed almost everybody other than that match for the most. Wrestling, you know, top of my game, I felt like. Went back home, got hurt. And when I got hurt, I just, did the thing that all wrestlers probably do in some ways, but I started eating and I just was big and I was like, man, I'm gonna have a hard time getting back down to weight. I couldn't work out at the time that much because of the injury I had. So I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do work. And then we went to Hawaii, which don't ask me why we went to Hawaii for this trip. There was about 5 or 6 teams that got a part of it. And I realized I got out there and I probably weighed 146 pounds and had to make 33 within 2 days, 2 or 3 days. And I think the lowest I got was about 140, 141. And I was like, man, I'm having a hard time. And this is not eating much, working out a couple of times, trying to do everything I could off that injury. Um, and yeah, I think I missed probably at least 5 competitions, just trying to get my weight down, and I was doing it the not fun way, you're using saunas, you're doing whatever you can to try to make it. And then we had a duel against NC State, and I got to about a pound over. I made it all the way down to 34, and I kind of just quit at that point. I was like, I'm done. This isn't what the sport's about. I'm not having fun. I'm done. I kind of had a talk with Coach Cody, and I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It's not fun for me. I'm not enjoying it. And then I probably took, it wasn't very long, but I probably took 30, 45 minutes to myself. I remember I was in the middle of the street in Norman, Oklahoma, kind of crying, just kind of letting it out at that point, the emotions that I had of like, this is what it's going to be like if you're done. You're going to walk away as a 2-time All-American. And I thought about it more and more, and then I walked back in the locker room and I told him we had a duel on Sunday against West Virginia. I said, Coach, I'm sorry more than anything that I put you kind of through this. And then I want to make it, if I can make it on Sunday, can I come back? Because he was kind of, once I told him I was done, he was kind of like, all right, you're done. You're done. I'm out, And so I walked back in. I told him, I was like, all right, I'm sorry. And I want to come back for that match Sunday. I think I can make it Sunday. Give me one more shot. And he was like, all right, you make it on Sunday, you're back in. So that was the last duel of the year. I made it on Sunday, made sure I made it before even, our warm up started. I was like, I'm making weight today. This is the day. Wrestle West Virginia, won the match, felt good. And then about a week and a half later, the Big 12s come around. I avenged that loss against Earl Hall. I think I bonus pointed. I think it was like 12-4, 11-4 in the finals of Big 12s. My first time ever winning Big 12s. And then a week and a half later, it's crazy, but I was seated 13th. And it was crazy because Earl Hall was 6th. I don't know where they came up with the logic in the ways of redeeming that loss. And yeah, I was seated 13th. And then in my mind, it was just I got to run through 5 matches. I'm the best guy in the bracket, but just got to get through 5. And then I think most of those matches, besides the finals, I think were bonus points in that way. And that's just kind of how I wrestled. Everybody that knew me was always like, I'm gonna shoot as many times as it takes to score points. And I knew that was always exciting for fans. Just in general. I was never going to be a guy that stood around. That was not my career. That's not how I was coached. And yeah, I ran it all 5 matches and won a title. And then, there's the story of kind of leaving the team and then turned it back around and ended up winning a title. So for me, honestly, it helps me relate to athletes as coaches. As a coach now, I'm like, I get it. I'm one of the very few that I could say that I got it. In that way, and you never know when your time is going to come. And lucky enough that junior year, I was able to put together, like I said, 5 matches at a great moment, and my family was all there. It was in St. Louis, so I'm from the opposite side of the state, but it was driving distance. They were all there, and yeah, got to live through that moment, I guess, and it was crazy. I go back now. I have looked at it now. I took me, I think it COVID. I actually finally went back and watched the 5 matches again, and I was like, wow, that was awesome in that way. So yeah, it just teaches you a lot about yourself and kind of that not give up story of like I could have been done. That title could have never happened. I could have been done with the sport. I stuck through it just a little bit longer, and a good thing happened. And like I said, not everybody gets that moment. Not everybody gets that time. So I was definitely grateful and blessed that I was around the right kind of people that were willing to give me another shot and then see me through it. So
Fantastic story. Going to talk more about your national title. I want to rewind a little bit. You're a 4-time state champion coming out of high school. What was the recruiting like?
I had 2 schools. That was it. Oklahoma and Missouri were the 2 schools I visited. Yeah, I had some other options. I wanted to be close to home a little bit. That was a big deal for my mom and my family to be able to watch me wrestle was a big deal to me. Just in my experience. And so, yeah, I took 2 visits that senior year. I told my brother, I was like, I've seen both places. I'm going to take a night or 2 to think about it. The next day I knew Oklahoma was the place for me. One of my high school teammates, Zach Bailey, who was a 2-time All-American, went to Oklahoma. So that was a big deal, seeing him have success there. I was a Missouri kid. I had seen them have good success as well, but there was just something different about Oklahoma when I showed up there, when I was there. Coach Spades, it was kind of funny. I tell the story that Coach Spades might be the best recruiter I know. He was retiring and recruited me to go there. And I knew he was retiring. So whatever that means in the recruiting game of like being like, I know he's going to be done, but he's still getting me here. And yeah, so he got me there, and then Coach Lightner and Coach Cody and me all meshed right when I got there. Tyrone Lewis was one of the coaches, Oklahoma State guy, but he was at Oklahoma at the same time that I was. And yeah, those guys kind of just all put their arms around me and were like, hey, we didn't recruit, other than Coach Lightner, didn't recruit you, but we're here for you, and me and Coach Cody meshed really well in my 5 years there, which was awesome. Cause you have relationships with coaches, but for me to have that with the head coach was a big deal. But yeah, I wasn't, I guess, highly recruited in some ways, but I knew where I wanted to be. So.
And now you're obviously a coach, and you've been at Northwestern, Virginia Tech, now at Princeton. I mean, you've lived it. Recruiting. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. I mean, you can look at paper and look at the credentials and the accolades, and that's one thing. But we're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids, maybe 16 years old when you start recruiting, whatever the schools are. Like, the billion-dollar question, like, what have you really learned about recruiting?
I think at the end of the day, it's these parents and kids want to know that you're going to be there for them, through the ups and downs. I know the way college athletics looks now, and it's a lot different. It almost seems very transactional, in some ways. Hey, we get you money here, we do this, transfers, a lot of that. And it's changed the makeup of it, but I don't think my approach has changed I think if you ask kind of any of the guys I've coached or been around, my job is to build relationships with them and then have their back, whenever they need. I had a great coach and Coach Lightner to be there for me. Coach Cody, all the coaches I've had in a lot of ways have been there for me. And that taught me, it's like, I just have to build relationships with these guys. And then, they just want somebody in their corner they can trust and believe in, and it's not, there's no secret formula to it. I wish there was in the recruiting game, but that's what these parents want to know. I send my kid to you, whether it's an hour away or it's, 10 hours away, 12 hours away. Can you take care of them and have their back, when you need to? And I think that's all it is. You got to be yourself in the recruiting game. I don't promise kids titles in that way, but I promise them the effort, to get that title will be there. I'll do whatever, it takes to get them here and produce them. That's what they want. And that's part of the game. It's recruiting and then developing, and I think I try to make it as simple as that. There's other factors now. Like I said, college athletics is definitely in a different spot, but doesn't mean I have to change my approach of how I look at kids and then how we produce them and get in, the room with them, work out with them, those kind of things. Is they need to know that you're there for them, in that way. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned over time is my style hasn't really changed in that way. So of recruiting.
Put you on the spot on this one, Cody. Give me your most memorable recruiting victory and give me your most memorable recruiting defeat, because I don't know how you coaches do it. I couldn't. I mean, you guys have done this long enough. You just must get to a place where you can figure it out. But my personality, thinking about the recruiting process, it would be like, I'd be like up, down, up, down. I mean, I wouldn't probably be very good at it. How would
Yes.
you answer that question? What are a couple memorable stories that you have being on both
Yeah.
sides of the coin?
Yeah. I won't throw names in there just
Oh,
because.
come on, Cody.
I can. I'll throw a couple of guys out there. I'll
Okay.
say. So I'll say a grateful moment and kind of a recruiting moment, but I would say day one with Sebastian Rivera was pretty special. I showed up there at Northwestern, had a little didn't recruit him, I should say, all the way, but was gifted him in a way. It was so funny. The first encounter, I meet him and his parents, and we go out to eat. And there is this big giant plate of food, and he's a small guy. He came out of high school 113, 120. And watching him eat that food in about 10 seconds, I was, let alone being like, this guy will not stay 25 forever. And let alone just impressed in that way of how fast he can eat. And I was like, man. And then our first workout together, I just knew he was different. Like, I was like, man, thank you for that gift of what I got in my first college coaching job. I get this little guy out of New Jersey that has a chip on his shoulder that's got something to prove. And now it's been unbelievable what he's done. We've actually kept our relationship now, me being in Jersey, just rewarding in that way. That guy he's like my brother in a lot of ways. We spent a lot of time together. And to see him just do what he just did at the Olympics and all that was incredible. And then the defeats, I should say, it's tough because I remember going to a couple workouts for a guy and then being at his house and doing that whole process and being like, we got him. It's a done deal. I know we got him. And then turning around and being like, coach, I'm not coming. And you're just crushed. You're like, oh, we worked so hard. We did the home visits. They came on our campus. There's a couple guys that I thought for sure that we were like, I remember, when I was at Northwestern, I thought we had like Mason Paris, like in the bag. I was like, oh, he's coming. It's done. And then he goes to Michigan, and I was like, that's not good in that way. And, just recruit some of these high level guys. You never know how it's going to go. I remember him because the football, he was a football player too. And I remember that me and him connected a little bit on football. He was just one of the many guys, but I remember being around him being like, oh, it's a done deal. We got him, and then I was like, we don't got him. So, it's definitely different. I felt that a little bit with Sonny Sasso was a gratifying. His brother already at Ohio State. I did a home visit with him. We spent some time with him. He's a great kid. And I was like, man, this guy's probably going to go to Ohio State. His brother's already there. And then when we got him at Tech, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, we did it, because
I thought the same thing, Cody. I mean, that's one of those where I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
He's probably going to go to Ohio State.
Yes.
And that was a great get for the Hokies for sure.
Yes, and he's a great kid and was somebody I really connected with. I only had a year with him in Tech. Obviously, wish for more, but man, it was like, man, there's no way, right? No, in our mind, I think we were even telling ourselves that we had a shot, but it was like just meeting him and his folks for the first time. Great people, and like I said, he was one of the big gets that I didn't think we had a shot at, and we ended up getting it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome! What a great get in that way. So. But we do on the recruiting end, you hear no way more than yes. So in that way, so you kind of get used to it. And honestly, these kids are so good about it. Nobody, I should say in my mind, I've never been like wrong, did, or anything like that, where they're, just kind of blew you off or anything like that. So all the kids have been good and grateful that, you reach out and you like I said, you're not going to get all yeses, but the couple gratifying ones you do get, it makes it all worth it. And then the work you put in, it's just like pays off in that way. So,
and this day and age with a transfer portal, I mean, you don't know. I mean, you don't,
yeah.
I mean, both sides, the athlete and the coach probably serves you both well to have an amicable, decision at that point, because you don't, I mean, man, chances are you're probably going to cross paths again. I mean,
yes. Yeah. And actually it's funny you say that. So I had a little bit of a situation that way. Sammy Henson was at Oklahoma when I first was like going to Oklahoma, and it was funny. So if I would have told him no, and not necessarily burned the bridge, but I would have told him no, I would have went to Missouri. Sammy was there at Missouri the next year, and I was like, oh my God, how would he have looked at me? And you hope nothing, but you tell somebody no, and then you choose to go somewhere, and then he's there the next year. It's just kind of how the sport works.
Don't burn
Sometimes, like you
bridges.
said,
I mean, don't burn bridges.
yeah,
Yep.
you never try to if you can in
Oh,
that way.
exactly.
So it was interesting. So I had a similar situation of that, of like, man, kind of glad I went to Oklahoma, because in that way you just never know how it's going to work, on the other side of it. So
I had heard something, Cody, might have been with you and Mark Bader again, where you were saying that you wanted to be an NCAA champion and that you were, watching the NCAA tournament as a little kid. Do you remember the first tournament you saw? Like, you got a memory that really stands out? What do you got?
So I got two in that way. The first one I think I went to, I remember I had the shirt. So it was like Okie State, I think, won
Early
the
2000s,
tournament.
probably?
Yeah, Okie State won the tournament. Minnesota and Iowa were fighting for second, third. That was kind of the era. I remember going to that one. In that time, I can't remember. I remember watching two guys in the finals. I should say this. Remember Travis Lee from Cornell. I remember watching him for the first time. And then I remember watching Tion Ware, which funny that I ended up going to Oklahoma. Love Tion. I met him, now, and have a good friendship with him. Pretty awesome that I ended up going there. But watching him as a kid, and I remember being like, it was so crazy. He kind of won in criteria, I think, is what they had. They went back, looked at something, switched it. He did a backflip, when he won, and then they had to come back and wrestle it again. And then he did another backflip, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a level of athlete in that way. So I remember watching Tion was my first one. And then obviously, I like Brett Metcalf, that whole experience, but I remember being at the TV when he lost to Caldwell, in that crazy moment of like Caldwell just kind of threw the kitchen sink at him, and it ended up working out for Caldwell. But I remember sitting like on the couch, like joking around, like wrestling with my pillow, like, mimicking everything that those guys were doing. And I remember looking to my mom at the time, who was in the kitchen. I said, I'm going to be in the finals one day. I'm going to be on that stage. And obviously it worked out for me, but yeah, I envisioned that moment ever since I was a kid. I wanted to be on that stage, something to prove, in front of all those people. So yeah, it started at a young age in that way.
Who are your favorite college wrestlers growing up? You have anybody in particular that you really liked?
Yeah, there was a couple guys that I watched. Franklin Gomez was one. Loved watching him. I thought the fact that he was from Michigan State was kind of unique at the time. I didn't really know much about him, and then I watched his matches, his film. He was incredible. Like I said, I mentioned Tion. Definitely Jordan Oliver was around that time. I liked watching him. It was I got like excited about Okie State, and then I went to OU, and I was like, all right, well, now it's on the different the rivalry aspect, but somebody I always watched from afar and knew that he was really good. I picked up a lot of things from him. Just a lot of those smaller guys that were around that, I still watch the film now, but that 2000, 4 or 5, that time, even when I got in high school and really started watching more. Andrew Long, I remember, was a guy that I actually knew. Andrew. My brother started out at UNI, and went 2 years there, and knew Dylan Long, his brother. So I was around Andrew a little bit as a kid, and then watching him in college was awesome, to see how he did obviously in his career. So I remember he was another guy that I was like, man, he's just tough. He just loves to wrestle, and pretty awesome to watch him as well. So
you're a 4-time All-American. One little nugget about you that I discovered in prepping for this is you outperformed your seed all 4 years. Like, that's pretty rare. I mean, I'd like to see that list. I'll talk to Jason Bryant, and I will let you know what that list is, because he'll
Thank you. Yeah.
And here's the great thing about Jason. If I called him right now, I'd almost bet my right arm he'd answer.
Yes, he probably would.
And he might even know that off the top of his head, but I'll get that information for you. So your first year, and I'm going off of memory here, you get on the stand. You know what? I'm not going to go off of memory. Were you a 13 seed again? No,
I was
eighth, a couple times.
Eighth, 13th twice, and then fourth.
And then the 4 seed. So you're in 2013, you're the 8th seed, you finish 7th. That first NCAA tournament, like what did you take away? What did you learn? What was something, Cody, that you had to experience it to get it?
I think it was just the, like we talked about a little bit, the pressure and the moment and just kind of being there. But it was like, I remember kind of telling my coaches after my first match, I think I scored 20 points in my first match. I ended up teching the guy, but just being like, oh, I'm here. Like, this is what I've wanted, like in that moment. And there's a little bit of pressure, a little bit of anxiety kind of before you go out there, but just how real it is, like how it ramps up. I think I've heard it about football. Like there's a difference in the regular season and the playoffs. It's a difference in like the regular season of the season when you're just at a tournament or a duel, and that's a big moment, but it ramps back up again for the NCAAs. Like the amount of intensity, where you're at in your matches, hearing things from other mats, big upsets, somebody gets pinned, something like that. Being aware of all that stuff, it's just different. It ramps up so much more. And I think those nerves ramp up, everything ramps up. It's like playoff football. It's intense. This is the tournament, right? This is what we all, try to peak for, all try to compete at. So just learning from that first one, the realness of everything, it was just, hey, you're in the quarterfinals right now. Like this is a big moment. The time, that you have before matches, sitting down, getting back up, trying to get warmed up, the TV time, all that. It makes you feel like a true professional in that moment. Cause like the pros deal with all the timeouts and this and that and stuff. And when you're in a college wrestling, you're like, there's no timeout, we're just going to go. It definitely changes you in that way. You learn a lot about the sport just in that first year at the tournament. And like I said, when I wrestled that blood round match coming back after kind of the quarters, the intensity in that. And then when you get through that, it's so rewarding. I remember my first year, my freshman year, I won that match and I go back to the tunnel and I was like, so excited. I'm going to be an All-American. And they're like, you got one more. And I was like, oh man, it was kind of that deflating. Like, it's just learning how the tournament goes, where your energy level is, things like that. So it was definitely a learning experience just from my first year.
What's the dialogue between your ears, 2-3 minutes before a match?
For me, it was always, I hope he's ready. I hope he's ready to feel, shots all the time, my best stuff, learn how to ride, turn, scoring back points. I was ready. I was excited. It was more, I hope he's ready in that way. I was telling myself that, I'm going to light it up if I can. I'm never going to stop shooting. That's never my style in that way. And I just hope he's ready for what's coming. I had pure confidence that my training, my coaches, everything was behind me, and I hope they're ready now, and I had definitely that chip on my shoulder, but it was more of just, seeing what I could do in 7 minutes, how much I could score, how much I could overwhelm somebody in 7. That was always my goal right before I stepped out there usually.
When you look at your training, your drilling, when you look back at your career, what do you think? And again, I know it's never just one thing, but if you had to pick one thing, what is something that you did where it's like, the reason I got to here is because I did this consistently?
Yeah, I think it was always trying to pick the best partners in the room. I was a 33 pounder. There'd be days I went with our 57s. I was giving up size, but I wanted to get exposed in practice. I wanted, I would always do, little things here and there, extra stuff, but practice to me was to see how to train my skills, how to become better, in every aspect. It's always about hard work. That's a given. But to me, it was how can I test myself in practice against the best guys? If I get exposed, where did I get exposed? That was to me what practice was all about. How do I get better? And then in the occasion I'd go with maybe somebody that was around my weight or a 25 pounder even. But in those moments, it was all about, I remember grabbing Gambayar Sanja, American guy. He was training with us. And I remember talking to him after my career, and he was like, man, that was the one thing that I always told people. He goes, you would go with anybody in the room. Like there was nobody you wouldn't go with that was bigger, whoever it was, you were picking them as a partner. And I think for me, that made it the best. And I was fighting those guys tooth or nail. Like, you can go with somebody and get beat up maybe by a big guy, but I was in there to scrap and fight every chance I got with those bigger opponents. And that's really, I think, what set me apart is I had confidence in that. Hey, I got to wrestle a guy that's my size as a 33-pounder. No big deal. No big deal. I just trained with one of the best 57s in the country, a couple-time All-American who's wrestled the best guys in the country. And I trained with him this week, whether it was Kendrick Maple or whoever it was that was around our crew, but Sam Hazewinkle, he was a 25-pounder, but he was one of the best guys in our room, and so trying to pick those partners every day was a goal of mine. And, if they didn't want to go, then I was like, all right, tomorrow, then we're going. I was always planning for the next thing on how to get better, and picking those bigger guys helped me out a lot. So
where are we at time-wise, Cody? How much time you got?
You're good, man. I got
okay.
plenty.
This stuff is just, I can't get enough. Okay. You triggered something in my mind.
Yeah.
Who's the best teammate you ever had?
That's a good question. Wow. I've been around a lot of good dudes. Oh, it's tough. I already mentioned him, but he probably definitely was. He kind of took me under his wing for sure. That was Kendrick Maple. Probably he won a title before I did. Probably the best training partner I could ever have. He exposed me every day in that way. I don't think I might have got to take that every once in a while, but he was a difference maker. We still to this day are good friends. He was a big difference in my career. And at the time, training partner wise, friend wise, he was what I needed, and he was, like I said, in the room, that dude could do he will look, I still say it, he will look exactly the same at 22 that he's got to look at 62. The guy is in unbelievable shape. He's a freak athlete. One of my good friends, and it obviously helped me a lot in my training. And he was a great teammate. He would pick guys up. He would help me at times. So right when he finished, he graduated, he stayed on and coached and helped out that next year. And that was the year I'd won it. And another guy that was willing to help me do the extra workouts, put me through extra workouts, do whatever I needed to make weight, to be there. So between him and Coach Lightner, obviously it was a double duty. You need a village, but yeah, Kendrick's probably one of the best teammate I've had for sure.
When did you realize, Cody, that you wanted to be great? Or you know what? Let me ask you this. Maybe I'll rephrase it.
Yeah.
When did you understand what it took to be great?
That's a good question. I think probably just watching other people. I was so enamored with sports as a kid and so enamored with like successful athletes. I wanted that so bad. I think it's definitely a lost thing of this generation. I hope they can find it again, because I know video games are big and streaming and everything, but looking at it like a professional athlete or a high level college athlete, having the success, man, it was like, I wanted that so bad. It was like, I want to be on ESPN. I want to be, in the limelight as much as I can to perform. And, my avenue was wrestling, but I loved, like I said, the football players, baseball, whatever it was. I love seeing that professional, aspect. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to, like I said, my goal was to be on ESPN, to do more. And, for wrestling, that's what happened with me. But it's just something about that professional athlete. I wanted to be that so bad. And that started from, like I said, a young age. And then when I got older, it just heightened more and more. Hey, I actually have a real opportunity at this. Hey, I'm going to Division I university. I have a real opportunity. Hey, I make it to the NCAAs. That's on ESPN. This is what I wanted. It was being grateful for those opportunities that I was getting. And then when I got it, take advantage of it if I could. So.
Favorite teams growing up?
Ooh. I jumped around a lot. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was one of those guys. Whoever was winning, I was good with in that way. But the Raiders were my team when I was a kid a little bit in that way. I was big into the NFL football. I was a USC football fan for a little bit when they had their time with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and all that. I was really into that. But man, yeah, I just looked at players. I remember Mike Vick was like, when I was a kid, was the man. He could do it all. in that way. So I was really into the athletes in that way that just, they were on ESPN, they were on every highlight, they were on this, they were on that. And I was definitely all about that. I like the Royals didn't get good until I was older, so I won't claim them in that way. They were pretty bad when I was a kid, as well as the Chiefs. But now they're doing good, so that's good to see. But yeah, I was just like I said, I loved all pro sports for the most part.
You have any posters in your bedroom growing up of athletes?
Yeah, Mike Vick was, like I said, he was up there. Kobe was one that I put up in high school. Who's the other one? I had one more guy. Oh, Usain Bolt was another one. Wasn't a professional athlete, but thought he was exciting. You know, it was like the guy was jogging and winning Olympic gold. So those three were definitely up, on my wall. And then I had some wrestling stuff of my brothers that I could see kind of every day and wanted to look into that as well. So that was kind of the goal. But yeah, I had a couple guys up, and those three were the main three that I had up at the time.
I ask this question all the time, so here it is to you. Speaking of posters,
Yep.
give me when you think about you posterizing somebody, what's the best, if there was a Cody Brewer poster of you hitting a move on somebody, what does that look like?
Yeah, I just thought about it just when you said it. It's probably the 2019 US Open. I was down in the finals. I hit a throw to pin Nico Magaludis in the finals there. And that was probably a posterizing moment in some ways. I know the NCAA semifinals was a big one for me when I did win it. I had some big scoring opportunity, like where I would get near fall off those. And I'd probably say between that match and the US Open finals are probably the two. I don't know. I've had some pretty good ones in my day of like throws and stuff like that. But that 2019 US Open finals was awesome for me. I worked my, career for that kind of in a way to make that world team, to try to make that push. And to hit that throw to be down in the match and then hit that big throw to win was pretty awesome.
Whose poster are you on? Anybody ever hit something big with you?
Like on me?
Yeah. Yep. That's
Oh
what
yeah. Oh yeah.
What's the best move somebody ever hit on you where you were like, damn?
I wrestled, this is kind of funny, but I wrestled my redshirt freshman year in the Midlands. And I wrestled Dan Dennis in the quarters. And at first I kind of thought I was like joking around. I was like, surely that's not Dan Dennis from like a couple years ago, like in the finals from Iowa, right? Like in my mind, I was like, no way. And then we stepped on the mat and I was like, yep, that's him. I can't remember even what he hit me in, but I think I ended up getting almost teched in that way, or might have got teched. I don't want to check the records on it now, but it was not good. And he hit me in something that I'd never been hit before. And I was like, oh, just went to my back. All right. So, but that match just in general, it was definitely a man versus a boy in that way. I was not ready for that moment. And he was a veteran of the sport. So I don't even remember what he hit me in, but it was not good. I remember that. So
want to talk about your title run? 2014, the 13th seed, which, by the way, anybody that knew anything about wrestling looked at that bracket and went, bam. I mean, like, I don't make too many predictions because I'm wrong most of the time, but that was what it was like. 13 seed Cody Brewer. Yeah, this guy's going to go on a run. I think he had a fall in the first round, and then you were just lighting. I mean, the scoreboard was tired. I mean, when you wrestled in that tournament, the scoreboard took a deep breath because it was going to get going to work. That's what I was. That was always my. I always talk about that in broadcasts. I mean, if I coach wrestling, which I don't, but my line would be that scoreboard better be exhausted in 7 minutes, okay? Because we're going to score some points. But in that tournament, like, was there a time where you're like, I'm going to win this damn thing?
Probably right when I stepped out after that first round, I was like, I got a fall. Yeah, the fall that first round. And I was ready at that point. I was like, it's going to be 13-1. That was my goal. And the seed didn't matter, but I think everybody that interviewed me talked about it. They're like, you're 13th and you're rolling through these guys. And I was just like, yeah, but it's, I had a chip on my shoulder, but I knew I was the best guy, all year. And I think you have to think that way. I think it didn't matter the seed of what I was. in that moment, I was like, I got to put 5 matches together, be my best. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm going to try to roll through them. And like I, kind of mentioned before, I was like, I hope they're ready, cause I'm coming, in that way. And, that whole tournament was special in that way, just cause of how I did it. I think I was always about, wrestling to put on a performance, but more of to see how people would watch it, to see how kids would watch it. And I didn't think I showed a new way, but I showed a way. I was like, I'm going to rack it up as many times as I can. I'm going to try to overwhelm somebody as many times as I can. And, that kind of worked out for me in that way. I don't think that's everybody's style, of course. And you learn that coaching now, but man, I took that tournament as such a, not coming out party, because I think I was doing it for a while, but it was like, this is my time to showcase it. Whoever's in front of me, let's go see where they're at. I know I'm at my best right now. So, but yeah, I racked it up a lot in that one, but that was just my style in general. I was never on the fence of being like, I actually, to be honest with you, and I don't think it's ever happened, which there's some that I'd probably go back, but I don't think I've ever wrestled an overtime match in my career. Starting from when I was 7 to all the way until I finished, never wrestled an overtime match. So I either won or I lost. So whatever that means.
You're like the Michael Chandler of wrestling. I mean, he might win, he might lose, but somebody's going to sleep.
Yeah. So whether it was good or bad, I probably wish I would have forced on some of my losses, some overtimes, but that was just kind of how I wrestled. I was going out to prove a point and try to score, and I never wanted to wait around and do, nothing. So that's probably what really showed in that NCAA tournament.
Back in 2014, were you able to pick your music when you ran out to the mat?
Yeah, I was.
What did you pick?
White Snake song, Here I Go Again was the one I picked. So I saw it in a movie called The Fighter. It was about Mickey Ward. Him and his brother would sing it to each other before they went out there.
Great movie.
Great movie. And so I saw it on there, and I was like, if I make the finals, that's what I'm coming out to. And they would like sing it back and forth to each other. And it was kind of funny, even before my quarters and semis, my trainer was kind of singing it to me before I'd go out there, because I kind of talked to him about it a little bit, and we were kind of singing it back and forth to each other. But yeah, that was the song I came out to.
What was it like making that jog to the Resolites?
I knew the time was now. I was like, this is it. And obviously I had a great opponent who ended up winning a title later in his career and was awesome. But I just knew in that moment that I was like, there's no way I'm losing. This is what you've been dreaming about. This is what you got an opportunity. Go run with it and take it. So, but it's a pretty surreal moment. I think I had a big grin on my face because I was just excited for the opportunity to compete for a title. A lot of guys are, obviously pretty serious. I was definitely serious, but I was more on the line of, man, I'm ready. I'm ready to win. This is my time. So I was excited.
What was it like standing atop the podium as a national champ? You remember that?
I couldn't believe it. Like I said, for me, I was just grateful to be in that moment. I was never supposed to do that. Definitely not in that tournament, being a 13 seed. Nobody picked me to probably, obviously like yourself, and maybe some other people I know maybe did, but nobody really picked me to win. And I couldn't believe it. I kind of was just standing there. And I remember even kind of like going back to the locker room after I got my bracket and trophy. I found my brother in the stands. He ended up coming down, and I was just told him, I was like, I did it. Like, I can't believe that. It's very surreal. You don't know what to think until it's over. And then, seeing that, which I always thought was the coolest thing, seeing that national championship picture with all of us, that had won that year and been like, oh my gosh, I was a part of that year. I was that guy for that weight class. Like I said, just grateful for that.
I said 2014 before it was 2015 when you won it. You American in 2014 as well.
Yes.
When you think back to that match with Corey Clark, and you said it, I mean, in my opinion, you talk about Mount Rushmore of pure tough guys. Corey Clark might be on that mountain. I mean, that guy, eating nails and washing them down with gasoline. I mean, that's what I think about when the guy never conceded a position, just great, hardcore, tough guy. When you think back to that match, what's top of mind?
just trying to, he was such a good opponent at slowing people down, um, and controlling ties. He was a big 2-on-1 guy. I just knew that in those moments that I had to use my speed, use my athleticism as much as I could. And when I got to a leg, I just was like quick to finish, get to the leg, finish quick, get to the leg, finish quick. And, he had taken some, which I was grateful for. He took 2 shots that I had defensively got off of and scored, which I was happy with. Everybody always thought I had no defense. I had a little defense when it counted, guys. So those were big opportunities that I realized if I had to take down, to get scoring at the end of periods, getting right outs. Actually, when I watched it back, I had like a 25-second restart after a takedown in the second period, and I wrote it out. I was like, those are huge moments. I let him go, give him another point. I don't know. I rode that 25 seconds out, and big adjustments like that. But, I was just more, like thinking, how can I get to his leg as quick as I can, get to a quick finish, and that's the first 2 periods were definitely that of just, trying to keep him guessing a lot of ways. I knew, like I said, he was real grippy, tight, strong guy. If he slowed me down, it was going to be playing into his game plan. But yeah, I just tried to use my speed as much as I could.
The national championship, I mean, that speaks for itself. The next year you come back, you're a 3-time All-American, couple-time Big 12 champ, number 4 seed, reigning national champ. Back in the semifinals with Nahshon Garrett, 21 seconds in, slap of the Resolite, it is over. Dreams are shattered. Describe what that was like.
Disappointing. I expected to be the 2-time national champ. In my mind, I knew mentally I wasn't there in that tournament. I didn't deal well with the pressure of that year of being the returning national champ. You kind of get everybody's best shot all the time. I just didn't deal the best with that, mentally. I remember it was kind of crazy before my first match, and the ESPN camera being like kind of right in my face as I'm warming up. And I was just like, this has never happened before. It was things that were new to me again. It felt like my freshman year a little bit of just, I knew the tournament, but didn't know when you're the top dog and you're going back again, what it's like, and yeah, I think I told myself before that semifinals match, we had wrestled in Vegas, in the finals of that in a really good match. He ended up beating me there, but it was close. I had thrown him in that match and put him on his back. And I remember just thinking like my knee was bothering me a little bit. And I was like, listen, just go out and throw him, right off the bat. Let's pin him. Let's get off the mat. Like, terrible mindset to have before you go out there. And, in my mind, I should have made it a war. I should have just been like, let's just see where he's at. Let's see where I'm at. Let's get to your leg attacks, defend his, and went out there, tried to end it quick, and then it got ended for me. So I got humbled in that way. My mindset was not right for that match. He took advantage, then won a title, right after that. So it was disappointing. It was hard to see that happen, but also probably one of the most proud moments in my career. I go back to the hotel after that. I have a moment to myself, kind of said a couple prayers to myself and said, what are people going to remember you for? Not the title. It's already gone. It's done. Now you got to come take third. You got to get the best thing. And I did really well in the 2 backside matches. I had to get third, wrestled really well, felt really confident ending my career that way. I remember talking to the reporter kind of afterwards, and he was just like, what happened? And I was just like, having faith in myself to end it right and to do it. And like I said, it was the most adversity I had dealt with at that time. And just coming back and taking third was so important. How are people going to look at me, as a wrestler, as a character person, whatever it was, they were going to look at me as. I wanted, to obviously be exciting. And then to be able to go out there and kind of, die on your shield like a man. I was going to lose that match. That's fine. But how do I finish? And coming back and taking third was was great. Me, my family, I represented myself well and the program at the time. You know, that was a big deal. I could have, like I said, packed it in and been like, you know, maybe I take sixth. Who cares? I don't really want to wrestle. Instead, I strapped it back on for two more matches and took third. So I ended it the way I wanted to, the best I could. But yeah.
As a broadcaster, one of my favorite sessions is the medal round because it's just so much more than the wrestling. That's what I think of when I watch that round. It's so much more than the wrestling. What do you remember, Cody? You take third place. You finish as a 4-time All-American. You win a national title. I mean, one of the great wrestlers to ever wear a Sooner singlet. You get your arm raised, and then you walk back to the corner. I'm assuming it was probably Coach Cody and Coach Lightner. Was it those two guys? What's that like? It's all over. I mean, what's that like?
It's emotional. It's emotional. I put in, 5 years at that place and I enjoyed it, and I really took a lot from those coaches. And yeah, I think I just kind of hugged them both and they told me they loved me. And I was, it's just that time was done, and then, like I said, I kind of had a moment by myself and with my family. And, it was kind of crazy to think I was really done. I think time goes by fast in that way. And I think I just kind of had that moment of peace of, you did everything you could, like I said, I talk about it a little bit with some of our guys, I went out there for wars and I got the best of most of them, for the most part. And, the ones I didn't, I learned a lot from. And like I said, I think more than anything, I think afterwards I was like, thinking about freestyle right away a little bit. I was like, how do I get back on the mat, and then more than anything is how do I help somebody, after that. And coaching kind of fell into that boat of this is the next best thing. This is what I'm going to do. Coaching is, I want to help somebody do more than what I did, and that's kind of been my goal coaching wise and trying to get these guys to the next step, get them to the next level. So that competing coaching kind of took over right away. I was already on to the next thing, probably the next day or two on how to get better at freestyle in any way. And then how to find myself into a coaching program.
When you won that national title, I remember you had I think it was a tattoo on the right shoulder. What is that tattoo? What does it represent?
So it was the Punisher skull is what it was. I used to read the comic books as a kid. And then the date underneath the skull is the day my grandmother passed away. And in the comic books, he would kind of remember his family members. And that was kind of my way of doing it. Luckily, I've only lost one. My family's been, healthy and blessed in that way. But yeah, that was kind of the story behind it. And then it just kind of stuck after that. The skull, everybody kind of remembered that in that way. And then my up top of it is just my last name. So, but yeah, that was the tattoo, but it stuck after that. Then I saw the Punisher stuff come out years and years later, and I was like, man, I should have trademarked something if I could in that way. But yeah, it kind of stuck with me in that way. And just another thing to give me a little bit of confidence and remember, family members.
You may or may not have alluded to this earlier. When you look at your career, what is kind of a two-part question? The most disappointing loss that you ever had and a match that you learned the most from?
Probably the most disappointing loss. My freshman year, no, I should say my sophomore year in the Big 12 finals. It was the only time, and it was really weird because I never did it, and I never did it again after that. But I listened to music before the finals, and I got so excited and so fired up that by the second period of the finals match, I was exhausted. I was emotionally drained, and I did not wrestle. I think I got beat. It might have been 8 or 9 points. I got majored.
By who?
And John Morrison from Oklahoma State. We wrestled the year before in a real tight match. 2, actually. Almost all the matches we had were close. And we wrestled in the Big 12 finals the year before, and it was a takedown match. I was in on a leg late, tried to finish, didn't get it done. He won the match. And I was just more disappointed in myself for getting so, I was so ready. I was like, this is the time I'm going to beat him. This is it. And I got myself so overamped that I was kind of emotionally, not even physically, but emotionally drained before I went out there. And man, I was so disappointed. I was like, I've never done that before. Why did I do that? I was more of an environment guy, not a music guy in that way. But I think from that, I guess I could say that taught me a lot about the environment and where I was best and how I would feel best. But I think just probably the match that I learned, I kind of, alluded to the Dan Dennis, match. He was a lot older, a lot more experienced guy, but man, I was like, I'm not there yet. It was kind of good for me to get humbled to be like, this is a guy that's been in the national finals. You're not close. So I have work to do in that way. And I took that as a learning experience of I got beat down a little bit, but how do I get back into that mindset again of this guy made the national finals. I'm not there yet. How do I get there?
Who's the toughest guy you ever wrestled? A guy that when you wrestled him, you might beat him by 10, but you knew this is going to be not fun.
Me and Chris Dardanes had 2 matches. Obviously the NCAA semifinals we'd wrestled, but my freshman year, we had wrestled in like to go for like 7th or go for 3rd and 5th. And I wrestled him then. He was always super tough. I mean, I wrestled him in practice. We've trained together a little bit at times. He was always just a hard-nosed guy, would stay in your face, that Big Ten style, Minnesota style. And I always knew every time we wrestled, it was going to be a scrap. So he's probably the guy that I look to. I think about just a tough guy, hard-nosed guy that always knew they were going to be good matches. But whether I came out of the better end or didn't, I always knew it was going to be a good match.
Where do you keep all the awards? The high school state titles, the Big 12 trophies, the All-American trophies, the big wall chart? Like, where is it?
It's in my basement right now, so it's staying there for right now. There's pictures up of my family, which is what I want up right now. I love the bracket. I love the four all trophies I have from NCAAs, but for right now they're in the storage. So I don't mind seeing it, but you got to humble yourself too. It's not about me anymore. What I actually want to do, and I've talked about it for years now. Is try to get the guys that I've coached put up their stuff, in my house and places that I can see it, because it makes me remember obviously the experiences, but that those guys did amazing stuff. The Riveras, the Latonas, those guys that I think about, those are guys that I, coached. I hope to have more at Princeton, obviously with the relationships here. I want to put their stuff up, to have those memories more than my own. So.
How would you finish this? I believe. How would you finish that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You got some good questions, Shane. We
got to bring it. I mean, you guys are because I'm fascinated by this stuff. I mean, you talked about it before, and I'm the same way. I'm fascinated by pro athletes, wrestlers. The older I get, I'm becoming more fascinated with people that can do things that I could never do in a million years. Like I could never, I have zero musical talent. When I watch somebody play the piano or the saxophone or sing, like that stuff blows my mind. I appreciate excellence. So that's why I like asking these questions. I want to get inside your head a little bit. Yeah.
I would say I believe if you put yourself around the right successful people, you will be successful. So I think that's something I preach to our guys all the time. Like-minded guys, successful people want to be around successful people. So it breeds itself. And I think in that way, there's nothing better than putting yourself around the right people over and over again as much as you can, and that's, like I said, I was blessed in my career to have that. I'm blessed to work with people like that. I'm blessed to have been around people in the past that have helped me, successful people. Even like, I don't know, having this conversation with you, you're a successful guy. So it breeds from me. I learn a lot from you. Maybe you learn something from me. It's how it works. Successful people want to be around successful people. And I think that really pays off. Something I believe.
Couple more for you.
Okay.
Northwestern, Virginia Tech, now at Princeton, kind of like what we just talked about. You're
Yep.
probably trying to take in every experience you have with somebody, you can take one thing. I'm a big believer in that. There might be 10 things about you, Cody. 9 of them I'm not going to jive with, but one of them, like, you know what? That one thing, I'm going to take that one thing and I'm going to use it to propel myself. What did you take from Matt Storniolo at Northwestern?
He gave me a shot more than anything. Man, he gave me a shot. He didn't have to give me a job in that way. And his level of just understanding with me. I had like life things happen at my time in Northwestern that he was like, totally go be with your family, do what you got to do. He was an understanding guy, and that really made a good impression on me for my first job. Is to realize that we all have lives. We're invested in the wrestling world, but we have lives, and Matt was definitely like that from an understanding perspective.
Tony Roby.
His intensity, man. He was an intense guy in the best ways, and he would pick people up. Me and Tony actually had a really good relationship. He's considered a friend, and I always bounced ideas off him, somebody I could learn from. And but his intensity to the game and to the sport was awesome. I appreciated seeing that, and definitely I learned a lot from that.
Another Sooner that you coached with at Virginia Tech, one of my absolute favorite guys on the planet, Jared Frayer.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I was with him for a little bit at Oklahoma. Seeing his approach to competing was a big deal, and then seeing how it transferred into his coaching. He really kind of had that player coach vibe for me, and it was kind of like that when we were at Virginia Tech too. I could see his approach was the same with kind of everything he did, and you could see it definitely paid off with a lot of guys.
In the time you've been at Princeton, anything with Joe Dubuque that's really resonated?
I was surprised just how much of a hustler he is. So he was basically doing this thing on his own last year. And then after that, I kind of got the call in April about the job a little bit after NCAAs, and he had talked to me about it a little bit, and I was thoroughly impressed, man. He's a hustler. He will do whatever it takes to get the Princeton Tigers, on the map. And he's given me a lot of freedom since I've been here. I've been able to work, and my thoughts are valued. And that's the biggest thing that's kind of awesome working with him is I'm very valued. My opinion matters, and he's trying to kind of get me to be a head coach one day, and I think that's what head coaches do. And I really feel that from him, and I'm excited to learn more from him. And then, hopefully take those things that I learn and hopefully teach a staff one day if I'm the head coach.
If you had to take a ride from New Jersey out to San Diego, California, cross-country trip, it's you and 3 people, dead or alive, that you've never met. Who are you picking?
Oh, man. 3 people. That's unbelievable. I'm going to go Kobe Bryant. Obviously, heck of an athlete. I would love to pick his brain on his mindset and everything he went through. Probably George Washington, one of the best, guys in the ways of leading our country. We're not speaking British right now because of that guy and his army. Third one. I want to make it like a music person in that way because I'm interested in music as well. Not intensely, but would love to pick somebody's brain musically. So many country music people I would love to hang out with. Gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. God, this is a tough one. I like this. Let's go. Let's throw it off completely. Let's go Prince. I'll throw him in there. Just a music guy, the highest of his career, in that way. I'd probably like to pick his brain and see where he was at.
What an answer. It's the biggest miss in my life. I mean, he was number 1 on my bucket list. He was number 1, and I didn't see him. I mean, That's a great answer. That is
Yeah.
I did not expect you to drop that, but yeah, Brits. Wow.
Yeah.
Cody, tell me something about yourself that very few people would know. Like what's something about Cody Brewer that most people just don't know?
I would say some people probably know it, but I am very tight to the inner circle of things. I am all about the people around me in that way. I feel like I try to become that friend that if, somebody would have pick on my friend, I'm stepping to the plate, and vouching for that person. So to me, and Joe jokes about it because he's like, you're an inner circle guy for sure. And I was like, I am. I am about people that, have helped me in that way. And I would do anything for just about anybody. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of like something unique in that way, but I'm a little bit of video game guy. I like video games. So
Favorite game?
Oh, I got a couple. I'm a big Madden guy, which is, football, 2K, which is basketball. So I'm into the sports games for sure. Because usually I live through the game, I'm a 7-foot monster in the game, and in real life, I'm not even close to that. So I enjoy that aspect. I like the game a little bit. My little one, me and him play Mario Kart and some other things. So I'm into that a little bit as well.
In your finals match in 2015, hard to believe coming up on 10 years, but you scored 4 or 5 takedowns, great on your feet. But you said it before, in that match, 25-second restart. I don't remember if there was a mat return or not in there, but I got little rapid fire. I'm going to bring this back. Haven't done this in a while. This is rapid fire, just mat returns. You're going to get up, Cody, and you're going right back down. All right. And I got to read my own handwriting on this. Okay, here we go.
You're good.
If anybody Cody, you're in a street fight, you get to pick one guy. Who you picking?
Andrew Howe, for sure. That's an easy one. What's up?
Favorite movie?
God, what is it? Lawless.
Favorite meal?
Any kind of Mexican food. I love it all. They're all great.
What's number 1 on your bucket list for a concert you want to see?
I don't know if he's still going. He's not his heyday anymore, but Garth Brooks would be awesome. I'm a big Garth Brooks fan, so that would be awesome. But I don't know if he's doing as much as he can now. But I would love to see it in his heyday. So,
if you won the lottery, you won the Mega Millions, what's the first thing you're buying?
Probably whatever my fiance wants. In that way, she has full control. So she probably gets the first purchase. I'll take a truck or something after that if I can get my hands on one. But she gets the number 1 purchase. So
outside your family, of course, house is on fire. You got to run in. You get one thing. What are you going to grab?
Oh man, that's a good question. Because they ideally they want you to say something of the family, the people,
and that's why, and that's why I always. It used to be that question, just what would you grab, and it was always the family. It's almost like getting on a little bit of a rant here.
Yeah,
somebody's going to ask you, "When are you getting married, Cody?"
I think this summer. We haven't picked the exact date, but that's probably when it's gonna happen.
Here's the other question. Okay. Maybe I'm a bad person for saying this, but I like to keep it 100. Okay, like, what's the best day of your life? And it's, the day I got married. And I'm always thinking to myself, like, and again, I shouldn't be saying this up. Maybe it is, but I'm always kind of like, you're just, I would say this: there's got to be a good chunk of those people that say, and they don't mean it. They just say it because it's just the right answer.
For sure. I'll just throw it out there. I'll say the NCAA bracket. If I had to go and grab one.
There you go.
There it is. I'll grab that.
When you were at Northwestern, you guys dressed like $1 million. That was a great staff as far as how they dressed. Now you're at Princeton. That's another really good staff. I mean, I think about, Northwestern, NC State, Pat Popolizio, and those guys are always looking good.
Yeah.
And Dubuque, Joe in Princeton, Nate Jackson, Joe, those guys know how to dress. Where do you get most of your clothes from? Like, where do you go shopping?
I think it's actually going under now, but Express used to be a big one for me in that way. But yeah, just kind of wherever I could find things online and
I'll
stuff.
give you one. I'll give you one right now. Even though I asked you the question, I'm gonna give you real good. If there's anything you take
I'm
from this
in.
interview, and I can hook you up.
All
State and Liberty suits.
Okay.
Bunch of wrestling guys. Michigan. How can Michigan
Oh
stand
yeah. Yep.
State
Yeah, I know
Liberty
who you're talking about.
Like,
yep.
and he's a big wrestling guy. So
Yep.
yeah,
I'll have to do that. That'll be the focus. I've seen that before. I've never really taken advantage of it.
bunch of wrestlers wear it. Jake
awesome.
Herbert does the commercials where he's like,
yep, the flips.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's
All right,
awesome.
who is your favorite athlete right now?
I probably got to go with Rivera. He just finished that Olympic run. He's definitely probably the favorite athlete right now. I know I'm going to have some here at Princeton that are going to be close in the mix. I won't pick just one, but yeah, Rivera's probably that guy right now.
Cody, buzzer sounds. I finished the period on top. This was awesome. I mean, thank you so much for the time. So much great stuff. And I can't wait to get this out and let the world hear it. But congratulations on a phenomenal career. Really appreciate the time. And best of luck to you and the family with this next chapter at Princeton. You'll do a great job.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And I'm excited. Let's do it again. I'm all about it again. So
we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.